All right, we got a very exciting video today because I'm going to be talking about something that normally doesn't happen to me, and I haven't had it happen in a long time. But in February, I started the month out with 5 consecutive losses. In January, I started the month out with 3 consecutive losses. Today, I want to talk about exactly my thought process and mindset when going through those because this will inevitably happen to new traders and veteran traders. Losses are something that you cannot get around, and loss streaks happen to all of us. It is asinine to say that a 90% win rate is something that is going to give you a good R&R at the end of the day. So I want to also show you guys that not only my mindset going through these losses, but how my trading changed during these losses and after them. How did I overcome this? And at the end, for a special little treat, I'm going to show you guys my exact setup I took on one coin. This is one trade that made back all my losses. That's one trade that made back 5 consecutive losses. Now, this is very normal for 5 losses in one trade to make them all back because my risk to reward is usually about 5 to 6. So for every one risk, I am making about 5 to 6 back. So it makes sense to take 5 losses. I only need one trade to make it back plus profit. So stick around. I guarantee this video is going to help you if you've gone through consecutive losses before and maybe you're feeling a little down about it and need some help. So let's get into it. So on the screen right now, I am showing you guys my trade results for January. So let's move this up a bit just to show you only the January trade so I can give you a little bit of background on how my success was the month before, right? So these are all the trades. As you can see, I started the month off with 3 losses. Spell XRP ETH. That's minus 3R immediately. Now this sucks, right? I was definitely, you can get discouraged when this happens, right? Man, is my trading strategy maybe not working? Is it the edge leaving the market? Is the techniques I'm using broken? And no, none of these are true. They're not broken. As long as you have a strategy that's been back tested long enough and is profitable on a month-to-month scale, there's really no reason for you to care about the day-to-day processes. I mean, trust the same strategy you've been using, test it out for multiple months. I've tested the strategy for years at this point and understand that it will give me a return. So even if you start with losses, you will produce a return. And as you can see in January, we had some losses and we started making gains back, took some more losses, and then ended the month extremely strong with about a 8-win streak. End of the month with a plus 14R. That means I made 30% return on the portfolio in a single month. Fantastic. Now, let's look at December before we get into some of the mindset stuff. Here's December, right after where it says Jan results. I start the month with a plus 2.5R long return. Now, that trade we held for about a month, so I didn't really notice this profit. But as you can see after, we took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 losses in a row. Now, when this happens, discourage will happen, your morale will fall, and you'll feel like you need to stop trading for a bit, which is fine. It definitely sucks to take this many losses this quickly in succession to each other. The thing I will say is during this period, I did get discouraged. Morale was down. A lot of people's situations may be different than mine, but I have a lot of people watching my trades as I'm taking them. So taking 5 losses back to back definitely hurts me. But I will tell you that it doesn't hurt too much and doesn't hurt my morale too much because I know that this has happened before where I took 3 losses or at least a few losses in succession and end the month very strong because I have a proven strategy and I know that I can trust it over the long term. So one of the first tips is trust the process. Trust the strategy that you have at hand as long as it has proved to be successful in the long term. Nobody cares about the day to day. Everyone cares about the week to week, month to month, year to year. That's where the results matter, right? So that's where we're at. I've taken 5 losses. It hurts a little bit. And now we get into the next part is how did this affect my trading? How did taking 5 losses affect my next trades? Like, am I going to maybe reduce margin, change my strategy to something else because maybe I think this one isn't working? Let's sort out what not to do. So, taking multiple losses in a row, the first thing you do not do is change your strategy because a few losses does not mean your strategy is broken. Absolutely not. What you do need to do and what you are allowed to do when taking losses is one, you are allowed to reduce your margin for the next few trades. That is what I allow myself to do, and I would say other traders should be allowed to do. You can reduce your margin to start to build your confidence back up. Reduce the margin, you'll be more confident taking some trades because you're not risking a full R anymore. And then once you do collect some R's off half risk, then you can move back up. The next thing I will say that is allowed is taking profit a little bit earlier. After taking a few losses, maybe some of those trades were in profit for a period of time, and you get a little bit of regret now not taking that profit when it was there and letting it go to your stop loss. So the second thing allowed is taking profit a little bit early just to get some wins on the table. This will build your confidence, which will build your emotional stability and definitely your emotional foundation when trading, which we need to be rock solid in order to have the confidence to hold to the full TPs. So, two things you are allowed to do after losses: reduce margin or take profit a little early until you get some wins on the table. Now, the last thing that you should be asking yourself is, how do we come back from this, right? How do we come back from 5 losses in a row? You can see a lot of these were short positions for me. So just knowing this, I knew that there was a bias that I needed to change. I could have an incorrect bias that I needed to switch. So as you can see, as we pull this a little down, you can see that the next sorting of wins that I had were all from long positionings. So the first thing you can say is, if I'm taking a succession of losses, something has to be wrong here. Maybe it's the bias, right? Maybe it's your draw on liquidity. Maybe it is a few things that need to be tweaked in your foundational analysis and your macro bias that you need to look at. So that's what I did. And I will show you guys the trade in just a second that actually made back all these losses. As you can see, it's shown on the screen here. Rune plus 2.25R and then Rune plus 6.25R. And we sold half here, and then this is the full TP. So we made about 8.5R on Rune, which covered literally every single loss in a single trade and has put me up, if you can see here, running total for the month of February plus 7.7R. So after taking 5 losses in the beginning of February, I am now in profit at 7.7R. Yeah, 7.7R. All right, so next up, we know my running total for the month now. You guys see how I've felt during the trade, how I've come back from the trade, at least from a psychology standpoint. And now we're going to show you guys the exact trade, the exact setup that helped me make back all these losses. And this is definitely the old faithful setup, and you'll see why in a second. So let's move into it. So this is Rune. I have some things on the right side of the screen to show you. I have 2 of my ETH losses. As you can see, 2 of the most recent losses were ETH. Most of the time, my losses are going to be about minus $1,000. Right, so it keeps everything pretty consistent. I know when I lose a trade, minus 1R is $1,000 for me, and a plus 8.5R trade is about 8.5 thousand. Makes it pretty easy, right, to understand that. Now, let's get into the analysis and how I knew that Rune was going to give me a good potential to make back everything that we had lost in the previous few days. Okay, so first thing is first here. I'm actually going to use this replay feature to show you guys a few things that I have annotated and definitely noticed on Rune's chart. Some of the first things were a lot of these highs, as you can see, were unrated. So absolutely nothing was taking these highs. They were protected. Price was never able to trade through them. This means that we're definitely in a bearish trend. Of course, this is textbook market structure. Lows are getting rated. Highs are staying intact. Now, the one thing that I will say during these trends is to never go against it unless you get one of those highs that produced a new low to break. Then you can have a bias flip. So like if this high ever broke, or if this high ever broke, because these produced new lows, these continued the trend. In the event they break, we can say that there's a bias flip happening. Now, let's play it a little bit to show you when this bias flip actually occurred. So as you see, it gets close, bias flip broken, and we know now we are allowed to go against the previous trend. So now we can counter trend trade here because we believe that the bias of this trend is flipping bullish. The next thing that I try to find is after that bias flips, before that flip occurred, there needs to be some type of imbalance that occurred on the rise up, or the propulsion block that we want to trade into. In this case, we have a perfectly formed 4-hour and 1-hour bullish fair value gap that we want to take a long into. So when price trades back into this gap that I have marked, we will take entry and we will target the next set of highs. And as you can see, it is trading down. We have to wait. Boom. We get entry. We're entered into this trade now. Stop losses before the imbalance. TP is at the top, right? The top of the next high. So we get our entry. Doesn't take too long. As you can see, draw on liquidity comes up and immediately taps it. And I'm sure it trades a little bit above this for a second. As you can see, everyone gets filled and we make about plus 4.5R on that trade. Now, again, one thing that we want to see stay intact is, now these lows can't break because it's almost the exact invert scale, right? So same thing on the other, how it looked on the short side is none of these highs can break. If it's on the invert side, none of the highs can break. If we change the chart back to normal, none of the lows can break. So as long as these lows stay intact, because these are the lows that produce the new highs, we're good to target the next set of highs. That is how easy it is. We are targeting internal liquidity to take to external, internal to external, internal to external, right? So these imbalances are the internal liquidity, take entry on internal, take it to external. Same thing we're going to do here. on this ride up to take this high. We were going to try to find entry potentially on this is an order block on lower time frames, fair value gap on the 15-minute, and we're going to play this. We take entry here. Takes a little bit of time for us to get there, but we end up getting there. We get our entry, we trade around for a bit. Boom, everyone is filled on our longs, and all we're doing is taking a 1R risk to make about 7.8. We took 2 entries, so we have 1.5 risk here. And let's watch. Internal liquidity filled. Let's take it to the next highs. And as we see, we get a little bit of jumbling around here. And finally, the market finds its breath, and we take it pretty fast to the next high and get filled for about 8.5 return. And truthfully, that's what you need to do consistently is take internal to external liquidity, internal to external, whether that's on the short internal to you're taking a short from internal liquidity onto the sell side liquidity, right? So it's internal to external. Very common, very easy strategy to implement because it is very clear. So I've done live streams on this. If you check some of the previous live streams that are posted on the channel, we take this trade live. We do this in real time to show you guys how this looks. But there it is, guys. That is me taking 5 losses in the beginning of February and making it back fairly fast. And that's my psychology through it, how my trading changed and what is allowed for your trading to change, and the full comeback. So hope you guys learned from this. Remember, it's inevitable for you to take losses. What you need to make sure that happens when you do take those losses is you do not change your trading plan. You do not change any of the techniques you're using. You do not get too discouraged as long as the strategy you've been using has a back tested record of profitability. Otherwise, you're a sitting duck and you're now testing a new strategy. For sense wise, we know that mine works consistently. So we just kept at the same thing, even though losses were stacking up, because we know that an average risk to reward ratio about 1 to 5, we need 1 win to make back all those losses. So in profit for the month of February. And that is the little slump I went through. So I want to be transparent with you guys and show you that. And until the next video, I'll catch you guys in the Sunday live stream and play bit. And hope you became 1% better today. Peace.